Hey guys, this is a new Grimoire flip through. I had a Grimoire flip through on my YouTube channel I uploaded like a year or so ago, and this is a new book. And I just wanted to like give you guys some ideas and how you could do that. Yeah, this is my newer Grimoire. This is more so like mainly for like cosmic magic and astrology, stuff like that, and tarot spreads. This was actually like a sketchbook, and I think that's like a rose quartz on it. Yeah, so this is a constellation of Corona Borealis, and this is a fixed star sigil, although I honestly don't remember which one it was, but these both were supposed to be on here for protection and like magical abilities and stuff like that. So right here I have another sigil, and I have my Book of Shadows blessing, and I took a piece of paper, burnt the edges, glued it in, waxed it on, and then I have my like witch name down here, and then the first page is actually, it's backwards for you guys, but it's the Emerald Tablet. I put that on there because I feel like it's important and I read it often, because I feel like the more I read it, the more insight I gain on that. And then right after that we have the 7 Hermetic Principles. I wrote all this information in. So like principle mentalism and correspondence and cause and effect. And then we have planetary composition. So that just goes into like the planets and like their metals and associated like things, I guess. And then we have like the elements, like some elements here like hydrogen and stuff like that, and their magical association, and the planetary octaves, and then how the planets help you on this side. Planets and meteorological phenomenon like weather magic and how to incorporate that. The planets, metals, days a week, the planets, and some crystal informations on that side. We have planetary essential oil blends, planetary pairs, like Sun and Mars is good for courage and confidence. Like if you combine the two together, like if you make a bind planetary glyph, like if you were to combine the glyph of Sun and Mars, right? Mercury, Saturn, protection while traveling, going unseen, commanding spells, manipulation spells, right? Out of a different book I had the symbols, and then stuff about star magic and like how like different stars are separated into like there's a different color associated with them in the Harvard spectral classification system. So some stars are blue/white, so you could use, if you're working with that particular star, you could use like a blue and or white candle. Some are the G, so they're yellow. Some are K, so they're orange. M is red. We have enchanting items with cosmic energy and planetary indications, channeling cosmic energy. And then I have a little short section about solar divination, but then I have magic by the moon. I have a whole part of my grimoire dedicated to that, right? And some of this stuff is stuff I took off online and copied and pasted in here. Some of this is like, because I made a giant Word document with all the information I wanted to contain on it, and I printed it out and added it to my grimoire. Alright, and some of it was like out of Kindle books and stuff like that I rewrote and information down. We have the moon phases and how the astronomicalness of it all. A little bit about gardening by the moon. I actually have a notebook dedicated strictly to that, because I do garden. I garden every single year. Then about how when the moon rises and more about the moon, and then the 10 days after the moon, and then we got some more moon phase facts, right? I like combined different images and put that on there. We have information about the void of course moon in there, and then moon sign magic, about how when the moon goes through the different signs. So we have like moon in Aries, and it goes through like all the different signs and the different things you can do with it. Like, for example, moon in Virgo is good for spells for health, healing, diagnosis, wellness, herblore study, organizing, tool consecration in general. Because Virgo is all about service and tools and things that they do with their hands, right? Because it's ruled by Mercury. Diet, making tools and objects, cleansing, purification, anything that has to do with details, getting jobs done. Arts of community and civilization are supported. The downside is it can be overcritical and hypochondria, right? It's a good time to purchase, make, cleanse, consecrate, and dedicate any and all ritual tools and altars. Purify your home, anything related to health, employment, career, anything to do with like craftsmen, people, tools, pets, small animals specifically, recycling, work, guilt, work, spells to help other people, payback is good for that. If you're doing anything that revolves around like visualization of like the ground, right? Then the ground would be rolling. That's an example. Then I have the different fairies associated with the different full moons of the months, right? For like the seed moon, it's plant fairies, and the hare moon, it's elves. Then I have a section about Neptunian sea magic, and then Uranian weather magic, and some of the symbols you can use for that. Like Uranus plus Mars is dust storms and drought. Okay, and we have a planetary tarot spread, and planets in the tension. So like for happiness, it's Sun and Jupiter. For glamours, it's Moon, Neptune, and kind of Venus, but mostly like a Neptune energy. Planets and lunar pairs and celestial body correspondences. So like asteroids are considered or associated with strength, protection, stability, and courage. A star cluster, unity, peace, strength, and also specific star clusters. Like if you're working with a star cluster in Orion's belt or whatever. A black hole, darkness, destruction, absorption, banishing. So like if you're visualizing any of these things, like those are what they're associated with. Fixed star sigils, new and old. Bohemian fixed stars and all the information about that. Like Capella is good for medicinal, toothaches, honors, public position, wealth, ambition. We have stuff about the Aries point and like the sidereal wheel of year dates. More about Bohemian fixed stars. Some stuff about Horae astrology. A little bit about alchemy and astrology. I never finished that. Some stuff about electional astrology. How sacred spaces and stars are connected. So like the idea that they would build like the astronomy of the sky into like an ancient temple is like a binding ritual, binding the cosmos to the earth and what you're doing. So like as above, so below, that's what corresponds to it. It says, constellations are also used in acts of evocation and some forms of talismanic magic and have played roles in magical rituals for thousands and even millions of years. If you're one of those people who believe that civilization goes back further than we know. The general rule of constellations is to place them on the ascendant or midheaven whenever possible and be able to see them during the operation. If you can't see the constellation during having visual representation prominently placed. Another possibility less often spoken about is to wait for the star in your constellation to form a paran with one of the planets in the solar system and then to invite the star's influence into your ritual via the planet. Via the planet. This usually requires you to have at least a passing familiarity with magical power of the planet. So if like I'm working with a particular fixed star in a constellation, I'm going to also say the invocation of the planet that is associated with it to invoke the energy of the fixed star into whatever I'm doing, especially with talismanic magic. Yeah, that's a good one. Some like personal ritual stuff, altar setup, like if I'm dedicating an altar. Home protection incense, home protection bottle or jar information. A lot of notes in here. Ideas for astrological tarot spreads and how the different, like I have a full moon in Scorpio tarot spread. I have another full moon in Scorpio tarot spread. Some protection oil, essential dignities. This is important. Stuff less often spoke about. Like the sun is dignified in Leo. It's in its detriment in Aquarius, and it's exalted in Aries, and it falls in Libra. Okay. The moon is dignified in Cancer. Its detriment is in Capricorn. It's exalted in Taurus, and its falls in Scorpio. Usually when the moon is like, I don't know if it's full or new, but when it's one of those two in Capricorn or Scorpio, I think it's when the moon's actually like further away from the Earth. Like when the new moon's in Capricorn, that's like in December, and the moon is pretty like farther away. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. Because there's like reasons as to why some of these are the way that they are. Like obviously the moon being emotional wouldn't do too well in Capricorn because Capricorn's not an emotional sign, right? Same thing with Scorpio. Scorpio's emotional, but it's a different type of emotion. It's the more Aries aggressive, right? Black magic color correspondences for candles, right? So like blue candles are good to use in spells pertaining to spirituality, meditation, summoning demons or other spirit guides, healing, stuff like that. But it's also good for making black magic. Blue can be used for inciting depression, sadness, hopelessness, lack of sympathy, coldness, and gloom. So it's kind of like that, you know what I mean? Like things we'd less often like think about and how to incorporate that. Like red's good for like, yes, red and black are both used for curses and hex, but black is more associated with Saturn, something slower that takes time to break it down, where red is associated with Mars, so it's like an attack. It's fast and it's sudden, right? And it's good for revenge. The difference between stormwater and rainwater. I got a lot of information from like Tumblr and different sources like that too. We have a section about stormwater, and then we have a section about the witches' runes, which are the runes I prefer to use because I'm not going to pretend like I have any motivation to actually learn like the Celtic runes, right? The witches' runes are simple. I have a simple whale sail recipe, and then there's a section here that I didn't finish, and then we go to my Beltane ritual that I did a few years ago, and then a 2-person Beltane ritual. And then my idea of a planetary runes. So I hit myself in the face. That's okay though. And then a voodoo spell for pain and torment. Yes, this is for my ex-boyfriend. More tarot spreads about the heart chakra. The repeating lesson spread. And I have a section about Lucifer. And yep, still more about Lucifer, like rites of Lucifer, different masks of Lucifer, I guess, if you look at it like that. Saturnian magic. Like the glyph of Saturn is composed of the cross. This right, because it's a cross and it goes like this, so it's a cross and a crescent moon. It's the reversal of the Jupiter symbol, right? Jupiter expansion, Saturn restriction. This matter surmounted over the crescent of the soul. In some variations, the glyph is a full cross, and in others, it is a shrunken to a Tau cross, I think. Either way, it represents the challenge and the struggle of the soul to rise through the form, constraints, and limitations of the earth plane. In this glyph, matter calls the dance, and soul must find a way to express itself within the boundaries of the steps. The glyph of Saturn closely resembles the upside-down version of Jupiter glyph. It tells the relationship between these two planets. Yep. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. You can use it for a lot of different things. And then we have a sour jar spell. Hecate's epitaphs and how to use them in your magical practice and how they associate with different months. Like different months will have a different epitaph. Right, because my matron goddess is Hecate. The weekdays, Hecate's 9 keys, the prayer of the crossed trident, magical chants to Hecate, Morning prayer to Hecate. A prayer and devotion and petition to Hecate. The witch's prayer to Hecate. A chant for crossing the gates of dawn and dusk is also in there. Information about laying a compass is in here. And then I have some crystal information like printed out that I used with some like homemade glue, so it looks pretty wonky. And then I have a waning moon tarot spread. And I do believe the last thing in my grimoire is about urine and magic. How to use it. Let's go into that. Urine is a quick substitute to menstrual blood when your intention is to bind a lover, which some people debate that, which is fine. Mixed coffee and tea, would not recommend, but to each their own. Men can also put urine in a drink to bind a woman, also pretty disgusting, but hey, whatever. Some people think urine is a territory marker. If a male goat smells a female goat's urine, it tells how ready she is to mate. Men are attracted to vaginal fluids and urine because it contains different pheromones and vaginal secretions and lingering urine odors known as copulins, and can also function as a territory marker against other females and can be used in domination spells. Cool. Yep, there we go. Oh, and the Waning Moon Tarot Spread is like in a personal tarot reading. So, let's kind of have a talk about grimoires real quick. Grimoires are not necessary for every witch. And here is like my practical suggestions here. When you write in your grimoire, make sure you write in an ink that's not too light, because like when we do spells and rituals, it's usually dark. We also want our grimoire to be functional and big enough to where we can read it. Like we're not struggling to read it during a spell because you need to stay focused, but also not too big that it takes up your entire space either. And that can go into where you can write something that's in there on a piece of paper and then keep it with you during a ritual or a spell, but then that kind of gets complicated because sometimes rituals are lengthy and 10 pages long, right? And sometimes it's just okay to if you have a certain book of magic and has spells and rituals in it, just use that. Now there's a difference here, right? We have a grimoire that's used to record, because I kind of combine the two because I'm lazy. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you totally can use record your personal experiences in a book that you also record your spells. And here's also the important thing: when I personally believe that if you're the type of person who's a grimoire witch and you record this stuff, after you write your spell down, you perform your spell. You should have a little section where you journal this, and you journal your experiences, how you felt, everything you did, all the astrological information, what sign the moon was in, what house it was in, planetary hour, all that stuff, if that's relevant in your practice. And when that spell manifests, you also write down how it manifests. And every time you do that spell, the same spell, you want to record your experiences, and you'll eventually find patterns and what moon phase works better, all that stuff. If you're doing a planetary talisman, and the first time you do it, the planet is on the midheaven, right? But the second time you do it, the planet is on the opposite, and you're gonna have a different experience if that's how you do your magics. When I make my grimoires, I usually do a sigil up here, but it's always for protection because people are nosy. And I used to really have a problem back before I started witchcraft. If I tried to journal or something, people would just go through my stuff, right? That I made grimoires and Book of Shadows, and I blessed them and I protected them. And I've never had that problem. I'm pretty sure my sister had only gone in my room once, but she did not touch any of my stuff, as far as I know. And I put a blessing in here because to me, I can read to you what it says. It says, "Blessed be this instrument of art, by my hand you were made, by magic be now changed, no more an ordinary book in my eyes, but a grimoire dedicated to the craft of the wise. By all the power of the times three, as I will, so let it be." And then it says, "Wisdom of the ages, be here with me now, secret book of changes, this promise I vow, to honor those who have gone before, to preserve the secrets, legends, and lore, to hold my place in the spiral of time contained within my sacred grimoire." So this serves two purposes. I am blessing it, and I'm consecrating this as no longer an ordinary book, but a magical tool. But then what I'm also putting in here is that it's essentially just saying that it's like a why statement, or like you're giving it a purpose. The purpose in here is to contain the lore and secrets of the ages and to preserve it, and to build upon, and especially if you want to hand this stuff down to like your kids or someone, your family members when you get older. And basically, like, it just kind of states what it's for. You know what I mean? It makes it. It's not just now a consecrated object, but it's a tool of witchcraft, right? I put that in there because I like it. I always, in the front of all my books, I have something like this, something like inspirational, something that opens your mind first when you first read it. Because sometimes I like to go through this and just read everything, like a book, right? I put this in there. All your main, like, if you're Wiccan, maybe your first page in here should be a Wiccan read, right? To me, I have the Emerald Tablet because I don't prescribe to a particular religion. I would say that I'm a witch and I'm an occultist, and I practice a variation of magics. I'm just going to keep it simple. I feel like that's the way to go about describing your magic. Like, sometimes it's better to keep it simple. I don't do things like, there's a traditional way, I'm more of a modern type of thinker when it comes to that stuff. I'm eclectic for sure. But yeah, and then also what I do is when I make these and I put my blessing and everything in there, I create a small ritual, and I cleanse the book and I consecrate the book and I write the blessing in there, and I'll write my first page or put it in there. And I think it's important because we talk about magical objects being charged, right? And all that good stuff. Well, part of the reason why we feel the need to charge our objects so much is because we're not using them. If we cleanse and charge everything on our altar, but we never are at our altar doing magic or ritual work, then the energy becomes stagnant. You know what I'm saying? That's why we charge and cleanse our cards on the full moon every month, like some people do. I don't do that. I'm unaware of the full moon stuff because I'm more of a dark moon witch. I work with the waning moon, the dark moon, and the new moon. Preferably. I don't understand magic on the full moon when the full moon is an opposition between the sun and the moon, so it's an opposition to conflict there. I don't really understand that, but okay. That's just my personal opinion. I do work some magics on the full moon, but it depends strongly, and it's usually the continuation of magic that I started on the new moon. Especially when I'm manifesting, because I'm more of a manifester. I usually do spell work for people around me, or when I'm when something has happened, then yeah. But I'm more into manifestation and alchemy, spiritual alchemy. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah. So with that being said, if you want to, the easiest way to keep this charged, where you don't have to keep charging it and consecrating with energy and all that stuff. Maybe you only want to do that once a year, twice a year, or something like that. It's just to write in it regularly, because and journaling all your experiences in it, because when you're doing that, you have the idea in your mindset that this is a magical tool, right? Because really the main function of this, because some people think that if you write things in a particular ink and that the grimoire makes your magic more special. No, I don't agree with that. It's really just a tool in its sense that the information's available to you. It's a reference, right? And it's also a tool because it can, if you journal everything meticulously, it opens your mind to the science in it, right? Because we always go, it's about attention, but it's 80% about your intention. A small part of it is the technicalities and stuff. Mainly it is about your attention, but it'll show you things. And depending on what you have written in there, like the Emerald Tablet, and about my blessing with the, wisdom and all that stuff, every time I read that, I learn new stuff that I did not understand about that. Every single time I read it. Those are important things. That's why your grimoire serves you. You can even practice divination. Some people flip through a Bible and do all that stuff. You could do the same thing with your grimoire. So, especially if it's a full grimoire. And some other helpful tips. You can, if you are full on hand making your own grimoire, right, and you have all your pages, what you can do is, some people like that stained look, right, and they wet their pages and they dry and they're brown. Well, you can do that, but you can also make that tea with herbs. like mugwort and some magical herbs that are meant to like raise energy, right? Because this is a tool to help you manifest. So that's the idea there, and you're making it sacred. So you want to also protect it, put some protection herbs in there, make that tea, add the essential oils. You can even dye it. You can dye the pages. You can color the pages all you want, but you can add that intention to every single page, right? Because then when you're reading your spell off that, it just adds an extra layer of energy into your magic, and if that's something that you want to do. But I always have sigils and protective symbols on these bitches because people really be nosy. People are really nosy, and I'm not down with that. And I've lent these books to people, and my cousin John had attempted to steal them from me, and I was extremely upset with him. But besides the point, just always protect your books. Always protect your books. Always consecrate your books. Always charge your books. Always keep your books charged by writing in them. That is very important. If you are a witch who uses grimoires. I am, just because I like to journal everything and have everything written down, because I drive myself crazy trying to keep all the information on the phone or in a Google Doc. Like, I have a Google document that's specifically for like lunar mansions and fixed stars and stuff like that, and I have separate binders for all the astrological information for 2020 and all the transits and every little thing, and I look about constellation lore and fixed star lore and all that stuff, and then stargazing and astronomy. So I try to keep everything organized, because to me it's just helpful like that. But would I recommend grimoire starting to a new witch? Yes, but you don't have to. I mean, this book was $5 at Five and Below like a year ago, 2 years ago. It's just a sketchbook. So if you want everything to look like super pretty one day, you want to have that, aesthetically pleasing grimoire, which I start out like that, right? But then as it progresses, it gets sloppier and sloppier and sloppier. So my suggestion would be, like, when you're starting out, go to Dollar Tree, go to Walmart, get a bunch of composition notebooks and have them all, subjected out, one to astrology, one to just spell work, one for personal experiences, affirmations, whatever you want to do, and keep all that information. And then after you've been practicing and learning for like, a few years or whatever, you can take that information and, like what I did with all my compiled moon information, I just put it on Google Doc, cut it out, taped it, and or glued it into this type of style of a book. And then if you're smart and you're not mean, you don't tape it, you can add notes and stuff like that around everything, and especially when you have a personal experience, or like if I have a section here that's about moon in Pisces, right? I have a bunch of stuff underlined that I think is really important here, and let's say I do like a particular potion under moon in Pisces and it's specifically effective, I might make a little notation about that in here. I think that's helpful. Grimoires, I do not believe make your magic stronger. The only correlation between your magic being stronger and a grimoire is the fact that you have a record of it, and you know what you have, like a written record, and you have the memory. You don't have to think back to it to know exactly every little thing you did to improve the next time you do the spell. That to me makes more sense than if it becomes magically stronger. I don't believe that. I really don't. You can't make me believe that. I don't think we should be telling people that. I don't think that is actually helpful. I think that's just how people sell big giant books and quills and stuff, because I'm all about the not spending money stuff, right? Like, I didn't really spend that much money to create this. In total, if I had to add up the cost of pens and the book and everything else about it, Five and Below, is probably like $8. I've made grimoires straight from scratch. That didn't cost me anything, just if I had it at home. Yeah. And I have quite a few. I have a blue one that I made that's specifically for the healing properties of herbs, and also kitchen witchcraft, like cooking and all that stuff. Because if I had to describe my style of magic, it'd be eclectic magic, occultism, kitchen witchery, herbal magic, cosmic sorcery. I'm pretty eclectic, and I have a natural knack for like history. Like, I wanted to be an archaeologist when I grew up, and like I love rocks and fossils and all that stuff. So a lot of my passions outside of witchcraft tend to come into it, right? Because a lot of my practices would fall more into the line of traditional witchcraft, right? And that covers a broad spectrum of traditions. So my spell work tends to be more based off historical fact, but when it becomes applied to what I actually do, it has a more modern take on it because I prefer to think for myself. I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed my grimoire flip through, and you learned some useful information from this video, and it helped you create your own and give you some ideas. And here's another idea for your grimoire. If you want to dedicate like the back section of it to the little back section of it to your personal experiences, part of what you can do is if you are astrologically competent in the knowledge of transits, then you can journal every single day about your transits, the retrogrades, pull a card, you can do all that stuff in there too. Like journaling has been something I've been really getting into since Mercury went retrograde. It's like useful for me, and it helps me to organize like everything from my astrology binder for 2020. I can put all that for like a 2-week time frame, and then journal all that and write all the information, how that's going to affect me and all that stuff, and I can go and do the tarot readings, and then every single day I can do like a pick a card and how is this affecting me and what are what I mean, it's that type of stuff. Like if the moon is because the moon's waxing right now, but let's say the moon was waning in Taurus and it was in my 3rd house, right? Then I could go through like every couple days and write how the moon affects me, right? Which is especially important for women because our menstrual cycles are linked to the moon, although there is some debate about that. So I would say go with science, but to each their own. Yeah, you can do all that stuff. Don't expect, or what would be the word? Don't let society pressure you into thinking that your grimoire has to be super magical and perfect in order for anything to work. That's not true. It needs to be functional. Functionality is most important, okay? If you have a bunch of information in your grimoires that you don't use, you don't look at, right? I'm not gonna sit down in here and write, I would maybe on like a side part just for memory, but not really though. I'm not gonna put in here like candle color meanings or the meaning of colors in witchcraft, because at the end of the day, the way that I learn is that if I have to use or do the same thing over and over and over again, it sticks in my brain. So every single time I do a spell, I use some element of color into it. So if every single time I'm doing this thing and I have in my mind I've doing multiple times, looked up at oranges for this, oranges for that, oranges for that, then I'm going to know it's going to stick in my brain. So I don't really have a need to write that down. So also be careful. Don't write just a bunch of useless information down. Like don't go on Tumblr and copy someone's entire blog because you're not going to use all that information. You're wasting paper space and you're wasting your money because you're not getting the use out of it because it's not practical. Don't write your book in a pastel pen and then try to do your ritual at midnight outside and not be able to read it. That's also no bueno. You don't want to do that. Like this should be a functional tool for you. Let me put it that way. Like it should never, you should have all the information that you would regularly use in here, but remember, like in my book, my kitchen witchcraft, I have a lot of recipes in there because I don't, have off the top of my head how to make a chocolate cake for love, right? I don't know how to make a chocolate cake from scratch. I don't have the exact amount of flour that I need in my brain, but if I'm charging my coffee, right, if I'm putting a little bit of cinnamon in my coffee for money, and I don't need to write that down. You know what I mean? Now, the only part that I would write that down is if I have a part in my book about my personal experiences and the magic that I cast that day, I'd write that in there. Because you can always go back to that. But always make sure that your grimoire is functional. And I would also say that use a specific pen for this. My grimoire is written all sorts of different colors, and it's confusing and it's hard to read. I would not recommend that. I would definitely not recommend pencil, because when these pages rip together, your pencil is eventually going to wear off. Don't do that. I would get like a particular like dragon's blood ink or like a black pen, but like dedicated specifically for this, because remember, words and all that stuff's magic, and you're writing it down, and you want, basically it's differentiating between a process you would go through that's mundane, and the way that spell work is not mundane. You're basically declaring that specific process is that, you know, if that makes sense. My other thing is, if you're one of those people that believe in sigil, like work with sigils, I work with sigils, and you're the people, the way that you do it, you create the sigil for the thing, and then you burn it, you get rid of it, and then every single time you do a sigil for something, you make a whole different new one. You don't have to have that in your grimoire. That every single time you don't have to do that. That would be absurd. Like, I have at least 3 different places in this book, like, describing how to use moon magic, and it's kind of, like, not functional, but, you know, it's from, like, 3 different sources, and then their opinions about it, and then my, you know, thoughts and ideas about that, too. So, yes, always keep your grimoire as a practical tool. I cannot stress that enough. It's more of a practical tool than it is a spiritual tool, okay? Yes, it's a spiritual tool, but your spiritual tool can only help you so much if it's not practical. You gotta be practical with it, man. You know what I mean? We don't burn incense in a room without a window open or some, you know, some sort of ventilation. We don't burn candles and not practice proper fire safety. Like, I have a fire extinguisher by my altar at all times. I had a little plate explosion one time, so that taught me, you know, so we have to keep things practical, and we gotta stay grounded with everything. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this grimoire video, and that you learned something, because that's important. Yeah, blessed be, guys. Oh my God.